Have you ever woken up from a dream that was just, so incredibly vivid and so heavy that it felt less like a dream and more like a memory?
Oh, absolutely. Like a memory from another dimension entirely.
Yes, exactly. You know the kind of mean. You wake up, your heart is just pounding in your chest, the sheets are all twisted up,
Right.
and for a solid 10 minutes, you just sit there in the dark, and you aren't entirely sure which reality is the actual baseline reality.
It's a deeply disorienting feeling.
It really is. The emotional weight of it just, well, it just sits on your chest. It colors literally every interaction you have for the rest of the day.
Yeah, the human brain is just remarkably adept at building these completely immersive simulations.
It's kind of terrifying how good it is at it.
It is, because when we enter REM sleep, the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain responsible for logic and linear time, it essentially just powers down,
So the logic center is just offline.
completely offline. And this allows the amygdala and the hippocampus to just go wild. They weave together our deepest anxieties, our unresolved traumas, and all that ambient sensory data.
And they turn it into a narrative.
Right, a narrative that feels entirely terrifyingly real. I mean, the waking world often feels almost thin by comparison because the dream world operates on this raw, unfiltered emotional truth.
That makes total sense. Well, today we are going really deep into a piece of source material that captures that exact phenomenon perfectly.
I'm really excited for this one.
Yeah, we're looking at a highly detailed firsthand dream diary. And it documents what can really only be described as a multi-layered spiritual awakening.
It's a fascinating document.
It really is. And I want to be super clear for you, the listener, right up front. This isn't just some fleeting, disjointed dream about, showing up to a high school math test in your underwear.
Right, no, it's not that at all.
No, this is a sprawling, incredibly structured narrative. It was written by an author who was documenting a dream about their father.
And the father happens to be a Buddhist monk, which adds this whole other layer too.
Exactly, a Buddhist monk. And in this dream, the father is facing these massive spiritual blockages. He's dealing with a very specific, very weird, cursed object.
The padlock.
Yes, the padlock. We'll get to that. And he ends up embarking on this completely surreal and dangerous pilgrimage.
The text itself is just such a fascinating artifact.
It really pulls you in.
Because, dreams are the ultimate synthesizers of our waking anxieties. But what elevates this specific diary is just how it blends these really esoteric spiritual concepts with incredibly mundane everyday problems.
Yeah, the contrast is wild.
It is. We see ancient religious iconography sitting literally right next to the threat of eviction and financial ruin.
And just really complex, messy family dynamics, too.
Exactly. It provides this very unique window into how the subconscious attempts to metabolize problems that the conscious mind just completely refuses to process.
So our mission for this deep dive is to unpack this rich tapestry. We are going to decode all this bizarre imagery.
There is a lot to decode.
So much. We've got a haunted padlock, water that mysteriously turns into jelly, chaotic jeep rides through foreign landscapes, and these mysterious founders of ancient spiritual sects.
It's a very dense narrative.
But the goal is to understand what this narrative actually reveals about breaking through life's deepest, most stubborn stagnations.
Because we all have them.
We do. Whether you are a dedicated Buddhist monk with decades of training, or you're just someone commuting to a corporate job every single day, we all hit these walls where our lives just congeal.
We all get stuck.
Right. So, okay, let's unpack this. We start the dream in a very specific, very oppressive setting.
The warehouse.
Yeah. The author finds themselves, along with their father and a few unnamed disciples, inside this massive, dimly lit warehouse.
And to really understand the scale here, the author describes the footprint of this place as being roughly the size of the main gymnasium in a major sports complex.
Like a massive basketball arena.
Right. It's this expansive, echoing, cavernous space, but it is entirely devoid of warmth or natural light.
The atmosphere they describe really stuck with me, because the author specifically compares the air in this warehouse to a scene in Harry Potter.
The Chamber of Secrets.
Yeah, the Chamber of Secrets. Specifically when Harry first confronts the giant snake, the basilisk.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They say it's damp, it's cold, and it carries this heavy, ancient dread.
That is a very evocative comparison.
It really is. It's that underground, forgotten, slightly dangerous kind of cold, where you feel like you are actively trespassing in a place that just hasn't seen sunlight in centuries.
Using the basilisk as a reference point is incredibly telling from a psychological perspective, too.
How so?
Well, the basilisk is a creature that lives deep underground, right? It represents this buried primal fear. And more importantly, looking at it paralyzes you.
Oh, it literally turns you to stone.
Exactly. It petrifies you. So the author's subconscious is explicitly telling us that this warehouse is a place of paralysis.
The father is stuck.
Right. The father has been petrified by his own environment.
That makes total sense. So let's look at how that environment is organized, because well, it's bizarre.
It's very strange.
Right in the dead center of this cavernous, terrifying room, there is a large, spacious table. And on this table, there are Buddhist altar fittings for chanting sutras.
Just sitting in the middle of everything.
Yeah, and they're laid out perfectly. Neat, organized, meticulously arranged.
Which is such a contrast to the rest of the space.
Exactly. It's like this tiny island of pure structured religion in the middle of a dark, damp void.
So what's fascinating here is that central altar represents the father's conscious identity.
Who he thinks he is.
Exactly. He is a monk. He maintains this outward appearance of strict spiritual discipline. The neatness of that altar, it's actually a defense mechanism against the chaos of the room.
It's a performance.
Yes, it's a performance of order, but the periphery of the room, the edges, that tells the truth about his actual internal state.
And that's where it gets really weird.
Yeah.
Because along the walls, surrounding this pristine altar, are these large, looming Buddha statues.
Right.
But right next to them is a bizarre, misshapen padlock and a key set.
This detail is so crucial.
And here's the thing that completely threw me. The father mentions in the dream that he bought this deformed padlock for 80,000 yen.
Which is a significant amount of money.
I looked it up. For context, that's roughly $500 or $600 US
Wow.
for a misshapen, ugly, barely functional lock.
The specificity of that price tag introduces a concept that behavioral economists call the sunk cost fallacy.
Okay, right.
But here it's being applied to emotional trauma.
Oh, that is so interesting.
Yeah, he has invested heavily financially and emotionally in his own blockage. I mean, think about what a lock does. It's designed to prevent movement, to secure boundaries, to keep things hidden away.
And some fact that it's misshapen.
That implies that his defense mechanisms are no longer even functioning correctly. They are distorted. They're broken.
But he still values it.
Immensely. He paid 80,000 yen to stay locked in the damp and the dark.
I really see it as the ultimate symbol of the emotional baggage we all carry around.
Absolutely.
We knowingly invest so much energy into building these defenses just to protect ourselves from being hurt or, honestly, just from having to change.
Change is terrifying.
It is. So we pay a premium for our own stagnation. And eventually, we forget how to even unlock the thing. We just sit there in the dark, guarding a deformed piece of metal.
That's exactly it.
But looking above this lock, the space actually gets even more oppressive.
The loft.
Yeah. Half of this massive warehouse features a loft. And this loft is packed up to the ceiling, like hoarder style, with architectural books and construction tools.
The spatial arrangement here maps just perfectly onto the father's psyche.
Really? How does that work?
Well, Carl Jung often analyzed dreams of houses or buildings as direct representations of the dreamer's mind.
Oh, I've heard of that. Like different rooms mean different things.
Exactly. The main floor usually represents the present reality or the conscious self, while upper levels, like attics or lofts, represent the intellect, the past, or these overarching unfulfilled ideals.
So the father has this pristine, ordered altar in his immediate center.
Right.
But hanging directly above his head is this overwhelming accumulation of heavy, worldly construction materials.
He is a monk, right. He's supposedly detached from worldly possessions. But his mind is literally weighed down by the tools required to build physical, permanent structures.
But he isn't actually building anything.
No, the tools are just sitting there gathering dust.
It paints a picture of a man who is entirely trapped between what he's supposed to be, the monk.
And the unfulfilled ambitions he just refuses to let go of.
That tension between the spiritual altar and the worldly loft, it feels completely unsustainable.
It is unsustainable. And the dream logic forces a breaking point because of that.
Right. The narrative establishes that the father is actually facing forced eviction from this warehouse.
He is in a state of severe financial ruin.
Yeah. The author and the father are discussing his future, and the father expresses just this absolute defeat. He claims there is nothing he can do. His back is against the wall, and it is entirely over.
He's given up.
But I found myself really questioning the father's despair in this scene.
Oh, why is that?
Well, he's crying about being kicked out of this damp, creepy, basilisk-style warehouse.
Right, a terrible place.
Exactly. I mean, I propose that this eviction is actually a profound act of grace from his subconscious. The universe is serving him an eviction notice because he has gotten far too comfortable in his own stagnation. He built a massive comfort zone out of dusty tools and cold air, and the eviction is the only way out.
That is a very compelling way to view the mechanism of the dream.
You think so?
Definitely. In psychological terms, a major crisis is often required to break a rigid ego structure.
A forced reset.
Yes. The father views the warehouse as his domain, his safety. The eviction feels like a tragedy to his conscious mind, but as you suggest, it is actually a necessary spiritual intervention.
He can't grow there.
He cannot evolve while he is anchored to this space. The destruction of the familiar environment is the prerequisite for real transformation.
A stagnant situation like this just cannot hold forever. You can't just sit in a haunted warehouse waiting for the bank to take it.
Something has to give.
Right. The conscious mind might be paralyzed, but the subconscious introduces a catalyst to force the issue.
And in this diary, that catalyst is very strange.
Very strange. It takes the form of a highly unusual paranormal anomaly. The author, along with two of the father's disciples, decide they're going to physically touch that 80,000 yen padlock.
Which is a big step. The initiation of physical action is crucial here.
They stop just staring at it.
Exactly. By choosing to touch the anomaly, the author breaks the passive observation that has defined the father's whole existence in the warehouse. They finally engage directly with the symbol of the blockage.
The reaction to this touch is immediate, and it is visceral.
Very visceral.
Right next to the padlock, there is this flat vessel filled with water. And the moment their hands make contact with the lock, the water in this vessel suddenly turns into a thick, viscous, jelly-like substance.
It just congeals right before their eyes.
The author says they experience this flash of intuition, a deep knowing that this poltergeist energy, this jelly, is the underlying root of all evil that's destroying the father's life as a monk.
Let's examine the physics of that imagery for a second, especially within spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
Water is universally recognized as the symbol of flow, of purification, of life energy. And in Taoist philosophy, it represents the natural, unforced course of the universe.
It's meant to be clear, and it's meant to move.
Exactly.
But by turning to jelly, it completely loses those properties. It becomes something that traps things rather than cleanses them.
Right.
Like if you try to pour jelly, it doesn't flow. It just blobs out in one big chunk. It's heavy, it's sticky, and it stops absolutely anything from moving through it.
The water polymerizing into jelly is the external physical manifestation of the father's internal spiritual state.
His energy is stuck.
His life force, his capacity for spiritual growth has completely congealed. He locked his energy away with that expensive, deformed padlock, and the result is this terrible psychic viscosity.
The environment is literally thick with his unaddressed issues.
Yes.
And into this incredibly tense, sticky environment steps a new character.
The key man.
Right. A man in his late 40s appears, we'll call him the keyman. The text notes he actually has a background in the construction industry.
Which mirrors the father's hoarding in the loft.
Yeah, exactly. But this keyman is also a very powerful spiritual guide.
The source text is very specific about his credentials, too.
Yeah, he's kind of a big deal.
He is. He has received direct teachings from the founder of the Sixth Sect.
And that's a real thing, right?
Well, it's a term in the dream denoting one of the major established Buddhist traditions. Furthermore, he possesses clairvoyant abilities. He can see into the unseen world.
So he's the perfect person to figure out what's wrong.
Right. He bridges the gap between the physical reality of construction and the ethereal reality of spiritual sight.
The keyman assesses the room, points directly at the padlock, and confirms the author's intuition. He states unequivocally that the lock is ruining their lives and demands its immediate disposal.
But the moment he speaks this truth, things get worse.
Much worse. The jelly phenomenon actually intensifies. The poltergeist energy just flares up.
This illustrates a fundamental principle of psychological shadow work.
Oh, how so?
When you finally illuminate a deep-seated trauma or a massive behavioral blockage, it rarely just dissipates quietly.
It fights back.
Exactly. The shadow self, the part of the psyche that relies on that blockage for protection, fights back. The jelly worsening is a symptom of the father's deeply ingrained resistance reacting to the threat of change.
The pathology is defending itself.
Yes, it wants to stay in the dark.
But the key man ignores the flaring energy. He turns his attention to the father, the paralyzed monk, and asks him a foundational question about his origins.
A very direct question.
Yeah. But more importantly, he asks, which sect do you most want to learn from?
He forces the father to articulate a real desire.
And the father, who has been completely defeated up to this point, he mutters very quietly, the seventh.
The transition from the sixth sect to the desire for the seventh is the pivot point of the entire dream.
It changes everything. Let's unpack what those numbers actually signify.
Right, so the Keyman represents the sixth sect. We can interpret that as the highest level of orthodox, structured, known spiritual practice.
The established rules.
Exactly, it is mastery of the known path. But by whispering the seventh, the father is admitting a desire to move beyond the known structures.
To level up, basically.
Yes. The seventh sect represents a paradigm shift, an evolution into esoteric, transcendent, or deeply integrated realization that simply cannot be contained within his current warehouse.
So he has stagnated precisely because he outgrew his current paradigm,
Right.
but he was just terrified to take the leap into the unknown.
That's exactly it. He outgrew the warehouse, but stayed because it was safe.
Well, the moment he admits this desire, the entire atmosphere shifts. The spell of the warehouse breaks.
Instantly.
It is instantly decided they're going to seek out the founder of the seventh sect, and then something incredible happens.
More workers.
Yes. Around 20 people suddenly appear out of nowhere and just start proactively clearing all the timber, the tools, and the junk out of the warehouse.
And the father doesn't even tell them to do it.
Right, he doesn't give a single order. The crowd just naturalistically dismantles the stagnation.
This sequence just beautifully illustrates how clarity of purpose mobilizes the subconscious.
It's like a weight is lifted.
For years, the father sat paralyzed by the sheer volume of his accumulated history. But the instant a clear, authentic, and terrifying goal is articulated, the seventh sect, the internal mechanisms of his psyche immediately kick in.
Represented by these 20 workers.
Yes, they begin clearing the debris. It shows that action often precedes motivation. When you finally align with your true trajectory, the obstacles that seemed completely insurmountable begin to dismantle themselves.
Think about your own life, right? How often do we put off a massive decision, feeling completely drained of energy, only to find that the moment we finally make the choice, we suddenly have the drive to clean our entire house or organize our finances?
It's the release of trapped energy.
Exactly. But here's where the narrative takes a really sharp turn into the mundane, and I found it hilarious.
The flea market app.
Yes. We have haunting poltergeists, clairvoyant guides, ancient sects, and then the author looks at all those construction tools in the loft and suggests, hey, we should sell all this stuff on a flea market app to fund the trip.
It's such a pragmatic intrusion into a sacred narrative.
It completely punctures the mystical tension.
It forces a collision between high-level spiritual seeking and hyper-practical everyday problem-solving.
Right, because the father is resisting the journey, and the author is just trying to figure out the logistics of getting to Okinawa, or Fukuoka, which is where this mysterious 50-something founder of the seventh sect is supposed to be located.
A founder who apparently has a name written in katakana, which implies a foreign or very modern element to him.
And the author is just analyzing the loft, saying, if we list these tools on Mercari, we can cover our travel and accommodation.
While it might seem funny, and it is, it speaks to a profound tension in modern existence.
How so?
Well, the father, as a traditional monk, likely views commerce, especially the pedestrian digital commerce of a flea market app, as beneath the dignity of his spiritual crisis.
It feels profane to him.
Exactly. It's mundane. But the author represents grounded reality. You cannot embark on a profound psychological or spiritual journey if you are completely untethered from physical constraints.
Enlightenment requires a plane ticket in this scenario.
Right. You can't just meditate your way to Fukuoka.
You literally have to buy a ticket.
And look at what they are selling. The tools in the loft are the very objects weighing the father down.
His past.
They represent his past, his unfulfilled worldly ambitions. By suggesting they sell them on an app, The author is proposing an act of modern alchemy.
Modern alchemy, I love that.
They must convert the heavy physical weight of the past into the frictionless digital currency required to finance their future.
The past must literally be liquidated to fund the transition to the seventh sect.
Exactly.
That concept, liquidating the past to fund the future, is a perfect transition point for the dream.
Things are moving now.
Right. The warehouse is getting cleared out, the tools are being digitized and sold, and the journey is initiated.
But it's not going to be easy.
No. You would assume the hardest part is over. Right. The curse of the padlock is broken. But making the decision to change and actually surviving the process of change are two very, very different realities.
The decision to change is merely the prologue.
Yeah.
The actual process of transition, that liminal space between the old self and the new self, is almost universally chaotic. It's disorienting and it's fraught with unexpected perils.
And the dream captures this friction perfectly through a really jarring shift in the environment.
We leave the cold, damp, indoor Japanese warehouse.
And we are suddenly thrust outdoors into a place the author describes as feeling like a developing country.
Right.
They mention specific atmospheres like Latin America, Vietnam, or the Philippines. It's dusty, the infrastructure is totally chaotic, and it feels entirely foreign to a Japanese monk.
The transition in landscape is a direct mirror of the internal transition.
The inside matching the outside.
Exactly. When an individual leaves a deeply entrenched comfort zone, even a toxic and damp one like the warehouse, they are stepping into completely unregulated territory.
The rules are gone.
Yes, the subconscious renders this psychological state as a foreign, developing nation. It is a place where the old rules of engagement do not apply, where the personal infrastructure is still under construction, and where the environment is just highly unpredictable.
And the transportation they use reinforces this rough terrain, too.
The Jeeps.
Right, they aren't taking a smooth, high-speed bullet train. There are two Jeeps waiting for them, a large one and a small one.
And a Jeep is a rugged, utilitarian vehicle. It's designed for off-road navigation.
It's going to be a bumpy ride.
Its presence implies that the path to the seventh sect is definitely not paved. It will require resilience, and it will be deeply uncomfortable.
So the author, the father, an autistic relative, and a slightly younger intellectually disabled friend all get into the large Jeep together.
A very specific group of people.
And the dynamic inside this Jeep quickly devolves into a nightmare.
It falls apart so fast.
The keyman, who was this powerful clairvoyant a moment ago, is now trying to act like a tour guide in the front seat.
He's trying to guide them through the transition.
Right. They are driving past various spots, and he's attempting to explain the history of the sects, trying to impart the necessary wisdom for the journey. But the father, the monk who supposedly just committed to finding the seventh sect, is completely ignoring him.
It's infuriating behavior.
It really is. He and an old friend are just chatting incessantly in the back seat, completely disrespecting the guide and the entire process.
This behavior reveals the father's lingering arrogance.
He hasn't really changed yet.
No, he hasn't. He stated a desire for the seventh sect, sure, but he remains highly resistant to assuming the vulnerable role of a student.
He wants the result without the humbling process.
Exactly. He is physically moving forward in the vehicle, but mentally he is still clinging to the egotistical detachment that kept him safe back in the warehouse. He just refuses to engage with the reality of the transition.
And the guide eventually reaches his limit. He turns around, furious, and asks the father this incredibly cutting question. Do you really have the will to change?
It's the core question of the whole dream.
The author is sitting there trying to quietly warn the father to pay attention, but the father remains totally obstinate.
And while this interpersonal conflict is boiling over inside the Jeep, the situation outside the windows is pure chaos.
Total chaos. The external environment is continuously reflecting the internal turbulence of the characters.
The author notes a crucial detail here.
The driving.
Yes, they are driving on the right side of the road, which is the opposite of Japan.
Right. In Japan, you drive on the left.
Exactly. This is a classic dream symbol for cognitive dissonance. The habitual instincts are suddenly incorrect, making every single action feel unnatural and dangerous.
But it's not just driving on the wrong side of the road.
No.
The oncoming traffic is coming directly at them in the exact same lane.
Which is terrifying.
The driver is having to execute these wild, terrifying weaving maneuvers just to avoid head-on collisions.
Navigating through oncoming traffic in your own lane is a brilliant metaphor for the resistance encountered during profound personal change.
Like the whole world is against you.
Yes.
Hmm.
When you go against the grain of your own ingrained behavioral patterns, it feels as though the entire world is speeding directly toward you, trying to force a collision that will push you right back into your old habits.
It's to make you give up.
Exactly. Every millimeter of forward progress requires this dangerous, exhausting exertion of will.
And outside the vehicle, the local inhabitants are engaging in these rough, unpredictable behaviors too.
The author notices the man with the bottle.
Yeah, the author specifically notices a middle-aged man throwing a plastic bottle purely to startle a child in the street. The atmosphere is just saturated with casual unpredictability and a low-level hostility.
The exhaustion inside that Jeep must be palpable.
Oh, it is, and the collateral damage of all this tension is truly hard to read.
It's the hardest part of the narrative.
Because of the father's stubbornness, the terrifying traffic, and the guide's anger, the atmosphere completely fractures.
The passengers start to break down.
The autistic relative and their mother start crying and complaining. They are terrified and miserable because the father's disrespectful attitude has destroyed any sense of safety in the car.
The mother begs the father to simply apologize.
Just say sorry. Just apologize to the guy to ease the tension, but the father flat out refuses.
This interaction reveals perhaps the most vital truth of the entire narrative.
Which is?
The father's spiritual immaturity and his refusal to engage with his own shadow is not a victimless state.
No, it's really not. I want to spend some time on this because the choice of passengers is deeply unsettling.
It is very deliberate.
Why does the subconscious populate this specific dangerous journey with such vulnerable people? We have an autistic relative and an intellectually disabled friend.
These are individuals who, by definition, require stability.
Right. They need clear communication and a safe environment. Putting them in this chaotic Jeep feels intentionally cruel.
It does.
I read this as the dream, forcing the realization that when a figure of authority, a parent, a leader, a spiritual guide, when they refuse to do their internal work, they create immense collateral trauma.
For the people in their orbit.
Yes. For the people who have absolutely no choice but to be passengers in their lives.
Your reading aligns perfectly with family systems theory.
Oh, really?
Yes. The father is the patriarch. His emotional state dictates the weather of the entire system.
He's the driver, essentially, even if he's not at the wheel.
Exactly. His refusal to humble himself, his refusal to issue a simple apology to restore harmony, actively traumatizes his passengers. He is so consumed by his own ego preservation that he becomes completely blind to the acute suffering occurring inches away from him.
It's tragic.
It highlights a brutal reality of personal stagnation. Our unresolved baggage is heavy, and if we refuse to carry it ourselves, the people closest to us are forced to bear the weight.
That is perfectly said. And the most tragic figure in this entire chaotic scene is the intellectually disabled friend sitting right next to the author.
The friend is such a heartbreaking detail.
The author looks over, and this friend is just staring out the window with tears in his eyes.
And the dream provides a backstory for him, too.
Yeah. This friend has canceled all his contracts back home. He has upended his entire existence to commit to this long-term study in Okinawa or Fukuoka.
He realizes in that moment that he can never go back.
And the author notes a devastating detail. This friend's parents are dead, both in waking reality and in the dream.
That friend serves as the ultimate psychological foil to the father.
He's the exact opposite.
Yes. Here is a highly vulnerable individual, completely lacking a safety net. He has no parents to fall back on, no home to return to.
He burned the boats.
He has burned every bridge and committed absolutely everything to the pursuit of this journey. He represents the true weight, the absolute sacrifice, and the terror required for genuine transformation.
He went all in. While the father is, frankly, half-assing the journey, chatting with his buddy and refusing to apologize, this vulnerable friend is weeping because he fully grasps the gravity of the threshold they're crossing.
The friend embodies the requisite spiritual sincerity that the father is currently incapable of accessing.
He feels what the father should be feeling.
Exactly. Those tears are a complex mixture of profound commitment and the grief of permanently severing ties with the past. The father hasn't shed a single tear for his past. He was merely annoyed about the eviction and resistant to selling his tools.
The contrast is stark.
It serves as a severe indictment by the subconscious of the father's superficial approach to his own salvation.
Sitting in that Jeep, listening to the crying, watching the oncoming traffic, you really start to wonder if they're ever going to make it.
It feels like it's going to fall apart.
It feels like the vehicle is just going to shake apart under the pressure of all this unresolved ego and fear. But then the chaos simply breaks.
The transition out of the liminal space is as abrupt as the arrival of the keyman earlier.
It just ends.
The perilous, dusty journey suddenly gives way to the destination.
And the destination's breathtaking.
A total shift in tone.
The dusty, developing country chaos completely vanishes. Suddenly, they arrive at a place that the author describes as feeling steeped in 4,000 years of Chinese history.
It is pristine.
Yes, this isn't some ancient, dilapidated ruin that has been forgotten. It is meticulously, perfectly maintained.
The environment reflects the goal.
The plants lining the small walking paths are perfectly trimmed. The stone lanterns are polished and gleaming.
The contrast here is the point. We have moved from the dark, cold, cluttered warehouse through the dusty, unregulated, and dangerous foreign roads into a space of absolute ancient order and meticulous care.
It's the opposite of the warehouse.
This environment represents the realized state of the seventh sect. It is a state of consciousness where the internal landscape is tended to, where the light shines clearly.
It's maintained.
Yes, history and tradition are kept alive and maintained, rather than hoarded and left to rot like the tools in the loft.
It is the visual definition of inner peace.
It sounds beautiful.
They are walking down these perfectly manicured little paths, and they see a group of local elders gather together.
The destination.
These elders are listening to the teachings of the unseen founder of the seventh sect. This is the very person they crossed dimensions, fought poltergeists, and survived head-on traffic to reach.
The finish line is right in front of them.
The father's salvation, the unlocking of his 80,000 yen baggage, is literal steps away.
The narrative tension reaches its absolute peak here.
It really does.
The resolution of the father's lifelong spiritual crisis is finally at hand.
And then the author wakes up.
Just like that.
The dream just cuts to black. Right as they're about to meet the founder, right at the climax of this epic, grueling spiritual journey, the subconscious just cuts the feed.
This structural choice by the sleeping brain raises a really fundamental question about the function of dreams.
I was so mad.
I mean, why construct this elaborate multi-act narrative of redemption, suffering, and revelation only to deny the dreamer the final cathartic resolution?
I found myself incredibly frustrated on behalf of the listener.
It's a huge letdown consciously.
We trudged through the haunted basilisk warehouse. We analyzed the cursed jelly water. We survived the most traumatic family jeep ride in recorded history. And we don't even get to hear the wisdom of the guru.
We get nothing.
But the more I thought about it, I wanted to propose an analogy.
Okay, let's hear it.
It's like the series finale of The Sopranos.
Wow, okay. I am very curious to see how you connect a mob drama to a Buddhist monk's dream.
Stick with me. When The Sopranos famously cut to black mid-scene, the audience was furious because they wanted the final, definitive answer.
Right. Did Tony live or die?
Exactly. But the creator's point was that the final bullet wasn't the story. The story was a tension of the life he lived leading up to that moment.
Oh, I see.
In this dream, the point wasn't seeing the guru. The subconscious didn't need to invent wise words for the seventh sect founder to say because the wisdom wasn't the missing piece.
The father already knew what he was supposed to do.
Exactly. He was just refusing to do it. The dream was entirely about the process of breaking stagnation, not the reward at the end.
That is a highly effective analogy.
Thanks.
Dreams, particularly ones of this magnitude, rarely provide the final answer neatly packaged. They operate as diagnostic tools, and in cases like this, as catalysts.
They show you the problem.
The dream successfully brought the author and the father to the threshold. It diagnosed the pathology in the warehouse, it demonstrated the painful mechanics of transition on the road, and it showed the cost of the journey on the passengers.
It did its job.
But the subconscious cannot execute the final integration for you. It brings you to the door, but it demands that the waking conscious self take the final step. To provide the climax within the dream would actually allow the waking self to remain passive.
It's the subconscious saying, I showed you the map, I showed you the stakes, now wake up and actually do the work.
That's exactly it.
And the author certainly felt the profound weight of that demand upon waking.
The physical reaction is intense.
The text notes that the author wakes up abruptly, and it is 3 a.m. They describe experiencing intense, spiritual goosebumps.
A full-body reaction.
They're so deeply unsettled by the sheer, heavy reality of the dream that they cannot handle the silence and the darkness of their own bedroom.
They have to turn the lights on.
They turn on the lights, they play background music just to break the silence, and they immediately start typing out the dream text that we've been analyzing.
We should look at the physiological reality of that waking moment.
Because 3 a.m. is specific, right?
Yes. Waking at 3 a.m., which is often culturally referred to as the witching hour, frequently coincides with a natural dip in core body temperature and a spike in cortisol if the sleep cycle is interrupted by anxiety.
So your body is already on high alert.
Exactly. The physical reaction the author describes, the goosebumps, the intense aversion to the dark, the desperate need for grounding sensory input like artificial light and music, it indicates a profound somatic shift.
The dream breached reality.
The psychological energy of the dream was so massive that it breached the boundary of sleep and manifested as a bodily reality. The act of immediately writing it down is an attempt to anchor a massive, volatile, psychic download into the physical world before it evaporates or causes further distress.
It is a visceral end to an exhausting journey.
It really is.
And it brings everything we've discussed into sharp focus. This wasn't just a quirky diary entry about a weird lock and some congealed water.
No, it operates as a profound narrative about the human condition.
It illustrates exactly how we hoard our past identities in the dark warehouses of our minds.
It shows how our unaddressed issues fester and polymerize, trapping our life force.
Turning our water into jelly.
Furthermore, it completely strips away the romanticism of personal growth.
It's not pretty.
It illustrates the extreme friction, the cognitive dissonance, and the inherent danger of trying to alter our trajectories. It emphasizes that the road to a higher state of integration is never paved, and it requires immense humility.
And perhaps the most vital takeaway for me was the realization that our personal stagnation is never contained.
It bleeds out.
It affects everyone who is strapped into the passenger seats of our lives. When we refuse to grow, when we refuse to apologize or drop our ego, the vulnerable people around us feel the bumps in the road the hardest.
The intricate symbolism within this single dream diary offers a remarkably clear mirror for anyone willing to rigorously examine their own internal landscape and their impact on those around them.
The author had to flood their room with light and sound just to shake off the heavy reality of that vision.
It takes a lot to shake that off.
But as we wrap up this deep dive, I want you, the listener, to think about your own internal architecture.
What does your warehouse look like?
We all have a metaphorical warehouse somewhere in our psyche. We all have lofts full of tools we aren't using and altars we are ignoring.
So what is your padlock?
Yes. What is your 80,000 yen padlock? What is that expensive, deformed piece of emotional defense you are holding on to that is keeping your life viscous and stagnant?
It's worth figuring out.
And more importantly, if you had to pack up tomorrow, leave the comfort of the warehouse and navigate a chaotic, terrifying road to finally fix it, who is sitting in the car with you?
And are you willing to do the hard, humbling work so they don't have to suffer the impact of your resistance?
An uncomfortable but absolutely necessary question to sit with. Thank you for taking this journey with us. We'll see you on the next deep dive.